Sustain 267.
Leading us straight into Sustain 267. And on the line, I'm joined by our host and climate activist, Nicole Rombe. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning to you and your lovely listeners.
So today we're talking about World Water Day, right? When was this, by the way?
Yes, it was on the 22nd of March, and this year's theme is Water and Gender, so where water flows, equality grows. When we talk about water, we often focus on scarcity, drought, and infrastructure, so I thought this was very interesting because today we're shifting it from what we usually talk about, but we're exploring how it's also a gender issue. And access to water can shape equality, opportunity, and dignity.
It's very interesting that water being talked as a gender issue. What does this year's theme really mean in practical terms, especially in a country like Botswana?
At its core, the theme recognizes that water is not experienced equally by everyone. We know this. Everyone knows this. In many parts of Botswana, particularly in our rural areas or marginalized communities, women and girls are the primary managers of water at the household level. So this means they're responsible for collecting, storing, and using water for household things such as cooking, cleaning, and sanitation. When water is scarce or unreliable, it is their time, their energy, and their opportunities that are most affected. So in practical terms, this can mean waking up early to fetch water, walking long distances, or waiting in queues and lines. This is time that could otherwise be spent on doing other things, such as education, employment, or even rest. So I think in practical terms, when we say where water flows, equality grows, we're saying that improving access to water doesn't just solve a basic need. It frees up time, it restores dignity, it creates space for women and girls to participate more fully in society.
Now, we know that Botswana faces climate challenges, but instead of asking how climate change affects water, how does it deepen gender inequalities linked to water?
That is an important distinction. Climate change doesn't affect everyone equally. It often amplifies existing inequalities. So as droughts become more frequent and rainfall more unpredictable in Botswana, water sources become less reliable. And I know we have been going through a lot of rainfall lately, which is a little bit odd because climate change really just, it does a lot. But when that happens, the burden of coping, it falls disproportionately on women and girls. For example, in recent years, there have been a lot of droughts. So if a nearby water source dries up, girls and women have to walk further distances or spend more time carrying that water. This can lead to, and research has shown that it can lead to girls missing school, women having less time for income-generating activities, increased physical and emotional strain as well. So, yeah, it's an important distinction between how it's not just an environmental issue, but it actually is a multiplier of inequality.
Speaking of access, who gets to make decisions about water, and why is it important to include women in water governance and leadership?
This is where the conversation shifts from access to power. So even though women are often the primary users and managers of water at the household level, especially in our communities and rural areas, they are frequently underrepresented in decision-making spaces. Whether it's in community spaces, whether it's in the district itself, whether it's at national levels, women are often frequently underrepresented. So this creates a disconnect between those who experience water challenges daily and those who actually design these solutions. A lot of policies are made by people that are not experiencing what is happening on the ground. They're made in a top-down approach where some papers are read and they give one solution, even though a lot of different things happen in different communities, and you really have to be on the ground to see these things, which is why I think it's important to include women in water governance, because it's not just about fairness, but it also leads to better outcomes. Women will bring practical knowledge about how water is used, what challenges they're actually going through, and what solutions are actually realistic to be implemented.
Now, moving back to the theme being that water and gender, right? It is a global theme, but when we look specifically in Botswana and communities, what does that really look like?
In Botswana, I would say the theme definitely plays out in both visible and subtle ways. I already talked about in rural areas, but in urban areas, it may look a little bit different, but inequality still exists, particularly in low-income communities where water access can be inconsistent. There are also cultural and social expectations that reinforce certain roles that have been placed on women and girls, making water management a gendered responsibility. But at the same time, Botswana does have the opportunity to lead by addressing these gaps. These, as I mentioned above, inclusive policies, community engagement, and targeted interventions that reduce the burden on our women and our girls and promote a shared responsibility. So I think in Botswana, what's most important is localizing the schemes. And by doing this, we recognize that these realities, we recognize what the realities are, and we actively can work towards changing them.
So with the notion here, where water flows, equality grows, what practical steps can I, or even somebody who's listening, or even communities or institutions take to make that a reality?
Turning this idea into reality action requires action at different multiple levels. I like that you included household, communities, and institutions. At the household level, it starts with shifting mindsets, recognizing that water management does not fall solely on women, but it is a shared responsibility. In communities can support initiatives that improve access to water, such as maintaining local water points, supporting rainwater harvesting, creating platforms where women's voices are heard. And at an institutional level, there's a need for policies and programs that actively include women in decision-making. There's a need for us to invest in infrastructure that reduces the burden of water collection, and there's a need to actually address inequalities in access. So ultimately, I would say, in closing, achieving gender equality in water is not just about water. It's about fairness, opportunity, and building more resilient communities, because truly, where water flows, equality should grow.
Thank you so much, Nicole. If somebody wants to learn more, right, and do more, where can one find you on social media as Sustain267, and if they want to get in contact with you?
If anybody listening wants to get in contact with me personally, it is Nicole Rombert on LinkedIn. I'm most responsive on there. And if you want to reach out to anyone that's on the Sustain267 team, we have a website, just as Sustain267. It should come up. We're on Instagram. We have a podcast, which is Apple Music, Spotify, and Spotify. We have a YouTube channel where we also post recaps of these talks that we do have on Wednesdays. So if anyone listening has missed anything that we've talked about in the past few episodes, you can definitely check it out on YouTube as well. We're on Facebook. We're everywhere, guys. There's absolutely no reason why if you search Sustain267, we will definitely pop up.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Have yourself a fantastic week.
Thank you for having me. Have a great one.